I applied for 157.
Rentals.
Yes.
I did not get one.
Hard-working Australians
I have hit this line. There is nothing else I can do.
doing it tough.
I'm the only one of my adult friends who doesn't own a home.
On 60 Minutes,
Demand has never been so great. The supply has never been so little.
the housing crisis is worse than ever.
It's pathetic. It can't happen. We have to change.
But this man
Welcome to Australia's first full-scale 3D printed house.
It's actually quite mesmerising to watch.
says he can fix it.
Are you sitting on a gold mine? Welcome back to our 60 Minutes Extra Minutes podcast. My name is Dimity Clancey, and joining me today is a gentleman called Nick Holden, who has a very interesting story to tell. He has almost built Australia's first 3D printed home. It's pretty exciting.
It's really exciting. So it's been tough. It's been a lot of work, but all that aside, it's been fantastic. What a journey! You know, I really enjoy what we're doing, and I enjoy stretching the boundaries, I suppose, and getting up and not knowing what you have to work out that day and trying to solve the problems. Which it's been every hour of every day, every minute.
That's probably been a really long road for you to get here. Do you actually sit back, or when you put your head on the pillow at night and think, I'm the first one doing this and I'm printing homes?
Sure. Yeah, no, it's probably the short answer.
You go to sleep.
So, yes, I don't sleep. I went to bed at 3 a.m. last night and get up at 6 a.m. So it's unfortunate that your body gets used to 3 to 4 hours sleep a night. But see, I can't do any more. But yeah, look, I suppose the only time you look back is we're so busy every day, every day. And yeah, sure, things suffer because of that. Saturdays, Sundays, I don't. No days the same as any different at the moment. But which is great because I'm engaged in that, and I really want to get to that level, which we are now, and that's been the push. We've been doing smaller things and amenities blocks, but prior to that, right, it was a battle. When we first kicked off, and I suppose your question, do we look back? Yes and no, and only recently because we've updated the website that we looked back, and I was being pushed for a timeline of when things occurred, and I had to go back and look at my photos and and yeah, it's good memories But the memories weren't that long ago. They seem a long time ago, but we kicked off, we started the 3D concrete printing during COVID, actually. So we got bored during COVID. And we weren't locked down in a manufacturing business, in my other business, but nothing was going on, really. So that's when the 3D concrete printing sort of started to occur, and yeah, kicked off, I suppose, as an idea. There were people overseas doing similar things, but like us, we were nothing, but they were in their infancy. They were probably 12 months ahead of us at that time. So,
was there a moment where you just thought, hey, let's print a home?
Yeah, well, I suppose that was always the goal. But saying that, I don't know if that was the goal. So I used to do a lot of 3D plastic printing, as most people, your listeners will know, typical desktop 3D printing. And I used to do that for fun, teach the kids, teach them to 3D draw and model, and just make stupid things, I suppose, and R&D, I should say, for work, so that wasn't. But, yeah, and on from there when COVID, and I saw these Russian guys actually doing it, I thought that was pretty cool and something different. And at the time, no one was really printing homes. They were printing things, Yeah.
What sort of things?
Oh, igloos, plant pots, benches. But I thought concrete was a dumb industry. Honestly did. I've come from the machine background and all that sort of stuff, and running businesses. And between all my businesses, I ended up somehow with almost 100 staff, which is horrific within itself.
What is your background?
My background, I suppose, out of school, I was a motor mechanic. So I was into cars and I wanted to race cars, and I did race cars, and I was always good, but never good enough to join the circuit, I suppose, in Formula One. But and I went from that, and I used to holiday rep in France. I worked for a French company for 5 years. So I was in France for 9 months, back in Australia for 3 months. And when I'd come back...
What a life.
It was awesome. I didn't see a winter in 5 years. Yeah, so I'd come back and I'd do engineering and I'd do machine building and welding, and I've always been sort of that way inclined. And I started I did start a mechanical engineering course and a degree, but then I started my other business in laminating and modular walls, which modular walls is still going strong, and that employs 90 odd people all up the East Coast. And I got busy, so that didn't occur. I didn't finish that. So, yeah, I'm a school dropout, I suppose. Finished high school in year 10.
Pretty successful school dropout. Maybe, if it takes off.
Let's see. Cost me about $8,000 a day to wake up at the moment. With all the staff and the costs of Contour. But
what made you want to? Where do you start? Where do you start with something like that? Like you made your printer, right?
We did. Yeah. So there was nothing. And initially, I'm always, I like to build machines, and that's sort of part of our IP in the other businesses, and develop the systems and the processes. And I suppose I've known no different. But for a change, I thought, look, can I buy the technology to speed up the process? And I spent a couple of months, I suppose, searching around the world for people that were doing it in a small scale, and there tend to be a lot in Europe, Russia, no one really in America at that time. But they were doing it, say, on that smaller scale where they were repurposing the robots, the robotic arms that make cars, and they repurposing them to do 3D printing in concrete. So, look, it wasn't sort of what I was after. I was after large scale and, easy to transport. And, look, being with that machine building mindset, I want to build stuff, which is a good and a bad thing. It can come back to bite you. But, look, in this case, during COVID, we couldn't get anything either. I couldn't get motors, I couldn't get gearboxes, servos, control systems. So it was tough, and there was no instruction book, because it was brand new technology. Even though some of the machinery, there's a crossover between other elements.
So are you just making it up as you go?
100%. Yeah, basically, yeah. Well, look, there's a crossover in some things. Like I could 3D plastic print, and I've got some really clever people that then could do more than I could in the coding sense, but then we had to adapt that to a large machine that we just built. But the hardest thing is...
how long did it take you to build...
From waking up in the morning thinking, right,
I'm going
to go to work today and build a printer. Look, the first one we built was probably 2 metres high, 1.2 metres wide, and say 2 metres long. And because we couldn't get materials, I couldn't get structural aluminium, which I wanted to use at the time, the particular grade. So we made this thing out of steel, and I couldn't get motors that I wanted, so I had to ring guys I knew that were in Siemens in different industries and beg and borrow sort of from their spare parts department. So it was really a bit of a bitzer, but it worked. It worked amazingly well. And the hardest thing was, we can get the machine working, that's mechanics, right? That's always going to work eventually. But the hardest thing is, and why I said I thought concrete was a dumb industry, was because I thought it was dumb. You just put concrete in, you do something, and off it goes. But this concrete science the science behind concrete nowadays is stunning, actually, and not what people would think. It is really advanced, and there's a lot going on. Look, and to get the mix, you need what's called thixotropy, for 3D printing, which means there's a lot of things going on, but it means basically the concrete comes out of our printer wet, because it has to stick to each other, but it can't be too wet where it falls over. It's still got to hold its shape. So that's the thixotropy. It's almost like, you've got kids.
So it's like quick dry.
Yeah, but the Play-Doh you mix up and it's soft, and then you smack it and it's hard.
Yeah.
It's sort of that. So it's got to come out like the consistency of toothpaste, but then hold its weight while the layers go on top.
And this 7 herbs and spices that you go on about,
Yep.
what is it? What's in it? What can you tell us that's in it?
Yeah, sure. So where we've got to now is probably more like 12 or 15, I think, by the time but that's the progression, in Contour 3D over the years. Got some super clever people, mechatronics, electronical engineers. We've got 6 computer programmers now, so we're an IT company. But the 2 guys we've got we've got 2 full-time material scientists. Really good guys. They're not like typical scientists. You can talk to them. So
you've got these guys, these techies, instead of tradies.
Yep, absolutely. So you're employing
tech heads, not tradies.
Definitely. I'd say we're 80% tech, because the technology drives the world nowadays. And honestly, I say the mechanics are the mechanics. It's bits that you bolt together. Obviously, you've got to bolt them together in the right part, in the right way, and manufacture them. But the beauty of the simplicity, is in the technology. All the things we're doing and measuring, and the algorithms and the millions of lines of code in the back end to make something look so simple on the front end.
So the concrete, just back to that.
Yep.
What is it made of? Like, is it just normal standard concrete?
It's a mortar mix more than anything, and the difference between concrete and mortar is the size of the stones in it, the aggregates. So we've got a maximum 5mm particle size, which might mean something to some of your viewers,
Means
but
absolutely
it meant nothing to me before,
No.
4 years ago. Yes, that's why we get such a smooth, creamy consistency. But concrete has got big stones. It's very strong, and it's hard for concrete people from the traditional industry or builders or engineers to go, wow, this shouldn't work. But what we're doing, why it's so special, is obviously we've got these 2 guys working full time, refining the mix to get that consistency. We've got about 40% recycled component in it, so we're using recycled sands, or they call them manufactured sands, fly ashes, slag, so all waste materials in there. So it's challenging as well. Well, you could gold plate a mortar mix, I should say, a contourcrete we call it. You could gold plate it, but then you can't sell it, right? It's just too expensive. So the challenge is to get it commercially acceptable in a cost point of view, but also commercially amazing from a look and performance point of view. So, but back to your 7 herbs and spices. Look, 80% of the mix is traditional materials, I would say. Like we've got the manufactured sands, which are recycled. Small amount of normal sand. We're down to around about a 20% only Portland cement ratio. And then the balance of that is the 20%, which is our pixie dust, right? So, and that's what the concrete...
And that's your secret ingredient.
Yeah, correct. And even I don't know what's in it. I don't know if the Colonel knew what was in the 11 herbs and spices, but I couldn't reproduce it. But there's a lot of... You can imagine the scope of the combinations. Yeah. And it's not just, reading a paper and working it out. It's solving a problem which has got 10,000 answers, and how do you...
So just explain,
Yep.
and I mean, you can see in the pictures as well.
Yep.
So you literally program the printer,
Yep.
and then it just spit out like
Yep.
toothpaste,
Yep.
and just print the home.
Pretty much, layer by layer. I suppose it is the tortoise and the hare in that situation. And then again, the software, as I said, we have 6 software engineers, but none of that was straightforward as well. We couldn't take existing software and make it work as we wanted to. We hacked up some desktop software initially to get it working, but hacking never works, and you can never. So we couldn't buy anything again off the shelf. So this is why we employed 1 software engineer, 2, 3, 4 to do all this stuff. So, but now we've got a system which we can scale with. We can add on to it. It's not like the house that Jack built, we're just tacking things on anymore. And we can look forward to 5, 10 years in the future. Maybe you can't. Don't look to tomorrow at the moment.
Yeah.
Or backwards.
So,
but yeah.
Everyone's going to want to know
Yep.
how much.
Yep.
How long does it take?
That's a good question. So, and I can give you some stats on the house that you saw. It was, in the end, I bought the house. We owned it, so we could control our own destiny, I suppose, and we didn't have to deal with customers at this stage. But that took 17 days worth of printing, and that was based on a 6.5-hour day. I think you guys have seen the time lapse, so we did that so we can't cheat the system or whatever else. And then we had to move the machine 1, 2, sort of 3 times, and that was because the current machine that we built, which is our Generation 2, only went to 10 metres wide, and I think this particular building was just over 12, so we could stretch it, but then it wasn't the resolution. It wasn't designed for that. But look, if we could have stretched it, there would have been 1 machine movement, and that's it. So we spent extra time doing that, and being close to the factory and close to home, we had that luxury of finishing half a day and going back to the factory to do other stuff and testing. But to get to your answer, it was 17 days worth of printing, but there was 130 tonnes worth of contourcrete, dry contourcrete in that particular house, and at 40% recycled. It's 40% recycled, but it is also 100% recyclable. So, and everything we tested with on site that we knew we were going to obviously crush up and put in our concrete bin, that all goes back and gets crushed back up and recycled, and I'm sure we pay to get it back.
And how much does it cost?
This is the first large structure. We've done other things for your network, the block in 2022 and so forth. So we have a lot of data. At the moment, we're looking at around about that 25% in an overall sense to build a pretty straightforward and simple house. Obviously, the one that you saw was a little bit more complicated. And again, that was a selfish reason. It was close to home and whatever else. But yes, but what we're doing, and part of the material scientists and the rest and the techies, and we're really trying to drive the cost of the raw materials down, and that's how drive the cost of the raw materials down, drive the performance of the machines up, which our Generation 3 printers about to come out, which it absolutely does that. It's faster in its operation. It goes to 12, 13, 14 metres wide. We've got some really cool tech on that, and we're limiting the amount of people on site. This machine will run with two to three people max on site, and it just
So
runs.
3 techies and a printer, and you can build a home.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't, maybe one and a half techies and 1.5 labourers. These, the techies are.
And the thing is, it's an important point because these days trying to build a home is ridiculous, and it brings us back to the why of the whole project and why we were interested in it at 60 Minutes is. Obviously, housing is a huge problem in this country, and it's a worry for everyone, whether you're renting, your rent's going up, whether you're in over your head with your mortgage, or you just want to try and buy a home.
Sure.
It just seems impossible. What the cost of, materials and the construction industry, the traditional construction industry, how would you describe the current state of it?
Broken, old, archaic. And I always say, and I think I might have said this to you previously, you can go to the Middle East, dig a hole in the ground and pull a house out of the ground that's 3,000 years old that was built with sticks and bricks. I think the advancements we've made in the construction industry are obviously engineering and understanding materials better, maybe batteries on drills, but I don't know, what else?
But what about builders out there? I mean, is it even feasible for them to stay in the industry these days?
Yeah, sure, because now they're getting paid twice what they were 10 years ago or more, because the average age of a bricklayer now in the country was 37, and it's a dying trade. So, but then you go to other alternate methods of building, sticks and bricks, and which is sort of sustainable, or sticks and cladding. But again, there's, I've got kids high school age, and they don't want to come out of school and be a bricklayer or a builder. And sure, there's people that will. But apprenticeships last year dropped 22% in New South Wales. The industry is in decline, but with the skill shortage, if your demand's up, which it is, you go to a project home builder, and you've got a 12-month lead time to start a house. Your material costs are 200% higher, and so demand's up, supply's down. I don't have to be the treasurer to tell you, supply and demand. The prices can still only go one way. Well, there's a labour shortage. But how do you, and I said this to the government, and how are you going to solve this? Oh, we're going to release land. I said, you can release as much land as you want, but how are you going to put the houses on there? Are they prefabricated houses? There's other solutions, obviously. I think 3D printing is one of them.
Have you got more printers ready to go?
We do, yeah. So we've got orders for printers. We're not pushing that element of the business at the moment, but we're about to. Because people say, oh, you should do this, you should print. And I say, well, I want to set up to print a minimum 50,000 houses a year, but it'd be nice to do 100,000. But because if you're not doing that, what's the point? You're not making an impact. You're just fluffing around the edges. You're just one of those other builders that's going to go bust again. And that's a good point, all these, price of materials and the rest of it. So look, our plan at the moment is to build that network, to build houses, to print houses. I shouldn't get rid of the word build out of my vocabulary. On scale and en masse. Otherwise, what's the point?
So how many printers do you envisage having out in the
field?
So
and for every 200 to 250 printers, that should build. There's obviously varying factors. Around about 8 to 10,000 houses per 200 odd printers. So then it is just a matter of scale. It's a matter of, I suppose, it's cash, money.
But how many printers have you got?
Oh, so we've built at the moment. We've built ourselves 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Call it 4, 5, something like that. We've got our Generation 3 printer almost complete, and a mobile batching plant which is designed for 3D printing only that we're building, which will drive raw material costs down by 40%. But what that'll do is that we're building the suite of packages, the software suite, the machinery suite, and it's all designed to build on scale, drive down costs, and accelerate the process.
So what are you envisaging? Are you envisaging people then come
purchasing the printers?
Purchase a printer.
Yep.
How much are they?
Look, a printer alone we're probably too cheap. We are the cheapest in the world. We've got the best layer quality, is probably 800 grand. And then you add the batching plant onto that, which is probably another 400. So we're somewhere around about the 1.2, 1.3, depending on the package.
And then how does it work? If I buy a printer, what do I do with it? Do I just then buy materials off you and buy a block of land and
plug
print
it in
home?
and press the green button?
Are you
hopefully.
serious?
No, almost. So look, we've had a few initial customers, and they're back at the warehouse and the factory now training. So they purchase a machine. We bring them in, we test, and we train them for a week on their machine, and we go through the whole process. But the reason we've got 6 software engineers, because I shouldn't say it's dumbed down, but you don't need to have a degree in computer science to run one. It's on an iPad, it's push button, and everything is taken care of, most things I should say, taken care of by the system. Self-corrections, it warns you. I suppose we're at the stage of call it an iPhone 2 or 3. You know what I mean? It's we've got it. It's there. We've got a few runs on the board.
It's a few iPhones to go.
Yeah, what am I got up to 15? So it's only 12. But yeah,
One step at a time.
But they came okay at about 6, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're at that stage. So it is scale now. We could sell a printer a day, honestly. So.
But can you manufacture them?
And that's what we're gearing up to do.
Yeah,
that is the plan. So the whole plan now is gearing up to manufacture the printers on scale. And efficiency, and then obviously have the training systems on board.
Yeah.
We're talking to different educational bodies as well to get those courses.
But once I buy my printer, is it mine then? I can buy as much land as I want, and
Correct.
I can put it out, and then I just get materials from you.
Yep.
And then I can just print.
Yep. And with the batching plant, the beauty of that is you can get 80% of your raw materials local to your job. So you're not paying for transport, you're not doing all this. But then the 20% is our pixie dust, which then converts the raw materials into 3D printable materials.
Yeah.
So
have you had much interest from builders?
Huge amount, yeah. And on that job that you guys came to see, we had, a builder every 10 minutes pulling up, and sticking their head in the door. So it was really incredible to see the amount of passing trade, and we didn't do it for that, right? But it's nice to get that validation, I suppose, that they want something new, there's something out there. And people go, what about market acceptance? What about the things? We don't have a customer problem, either on machinery side or on the other side. So, at the end of the day, it's an environmentally friendly, recycled concrete house. Anyone would give you 100, 200-year design life on it.
Who are your competitors?
Well, if I don't consider the standard building trade as a competitor at the moment, everyone's got to work together. We don't really have any in the country that's capable of doing it on scale. There are people that have got the robotic arms, and all the universities have got them, but I would say to those people, we know them, we talk to them, the market is that big and the problem is that large. You don't want to fight 2 wars and get to the same point, let's do it together. And I genuinely mean that. Obviously, I'm not going to give away the herbs and spices, but it's...
No, there's a real need for something to be done differently, and, it just... You don't work so hard and do all the right things to be sitting there worrying about whether you can have a roof over your children's heads.
It's horrible.
And that's, that's where we've got to change, and that's
absolutely.
Hopefully what you're doing can be done. Well, thank you so much for coming on. It's absolutely, it's a fascinating topic, and people will be, very keen to see where you go, and I really hope from a housing point of view that you can make that difference that you want in Australia.
I do.
So thank you so much. Don't forget you can watch the full story on 9 Now and also on our YouTube channel. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.